Okay, in this section, I'm going to talk about different sorts of descent groups. And we're going to begin with unilineal descent, and we'll move on to more complex ones. Unilineal descents, literally it means one line, unilineal. Excuse me, we've heard that before when we talked about politics. We talked about Elman Service's unilineal model for human political development. And it meant one line in that case too, but it was referring to something different. In this case, one line means one line of descent. You're only descended through your either male line or your female line, right? And this seems weird to us in the United States. We have a bilateral system. It's not unilineal, right? So this is always going to seem strange to us. We're from Western cultures where we have a bilateral system because basically you're ignoring what we see as half of your family, right? And unilineal descent groups, you only reckon kin through either your male relatives or through your female relatives. If you reckon through your male relatives, they call it a patrilineal descent. In patrilineal groups, you'd only be related to anybody through a male relative. If we look at the chart to the right, as an example, we've got our ego designated, which, as you recall from the previous lecture, means I, or the person who the chart is about. So in this case, ego is related to all of the purple shapes, right? So related to his own father, because his father's male, so he can be related to a male through a male. He's related to his sister. She's female, but he can be related to her through a male, through his father in this case, and still be related. He is related to his brother through his father. He is not related to his sister's children because he's related to the sister through the father, but the children are only connected through a female member, and so they are not considered to be related to ego. That's the thing that's weird. The brother, on the other hand, has children, and those are considered to be related to ego. Ego's own children are related to him, including his daughter, including his niece, as long as it's the niece from the brother rather than from the sister. He's not related to his wife, obviously. His wife is related to her father. His wife is related to her sister through her father, and her brother through her father. She is related to her brother's kids. She is not related to her sister's kids. Like, she's not related to them through a male relative. That's how a patrilineal group works. You only trace through the male relatives. If you're not related through a male relative, you're not related. And that's the thing that's really weird to us. We recognize both sides equally, and so there should be no difference. But in a patrilineal system, that's not the case. You only reckon kin through your male relatives. These groups, individual lineages within a patrilineal system, are called patrilineages. Matrilineal group works the other way around. Same basic principle, except you're only related to people through your female kin. So in this case, ego is designated as the female in this chart, and ego is related to her sister and her brother, same as she was before, but through her mother this time, not through her father. She is not related to her own father, right? Just like ego in this case, not related to his mother, because it's a patrilineal system. In a matrilineal system, this ego is not related to her father. She is related to her mother, anybody through her. So she is related to her sister and her sister's children. She's related to her brother, but not her brother's children, because she's not related to them through a female relative. On ego's side, on ego's husband's side, he is related to his mother. He's not related to his father. He is related to his brother through his mother, his sister through his mother, related to his sister's kids through his mother and then his sister. He is not related to his brother's kids. Right. In matrilineal groups, you call different lineages matrilineages. Within these matrilineal groups, you often see associations of clans, which is a group of common lineages, whether they're patrilineages or matrilineages, depends on the sort of kinship that they have. But in unilineal groups, often you find they group together based on the idea that they're related to somebody in the distant past. They may or may not be able to trace direct relationships to that individual, may not even be able to specify that individual, but they have an idea that they're related. And that's how clans are formed. I have these guys with the kilts on because clan is used in a more common sense in Scottish tradition, and it was associated with different tartans. And Eric Hobsbawm, I believe, wrote a couple of essays, maybe even an entire book on that, the development of that tartan system in the 19th century, if you're interested in that. But that term clan is used a little bit more loosely in that case, probably originated from a similar circumstance. Of course, that's changed, integrated into the rest of the Western world. Um, that's a whole other story. But in any case, you may see the term clan used. And when we're talking about these unilineal groups, it's a group of different lineages that see themselves as related in some way. Right? Moving forward, other types of descent groups. These are the ones that are not considered to be unilineal. Bilateral is the top of the list. That's the one that I mentioned earlier. That's what we have in the United States for the most part. A bilateral system. You reckon kin equally through your male and female relatives. So you're related to your mother's side, you're related to your father's side. That's why the unilineal groups seem weird to us, because we have a bilateral system. Trace equally through both parents, through both male and female relatives. So that's pretty straightforward. That's the one that's normal in the West. Ambilineal systems are bilateral in nature because they recognize both sides. But if we look at the terms, we want to break these things down as much as we can. If you look at the term bilateral, just back up to that for a second. Bi means two, and lateral means side, right? So two sides. That's literally what that means, right? You may also see bilineal in the literature. That's also used interchangeably with bilateral, but it means two lines instead of two sides. So lineal means line, lateral means side, bi means two, ambi means either or both, like ambidextrous or ambivalent, but this is ambilineal, so it means that you can choose which side you want to belong to. Ambilineal, essentially, it's a bilateral system because you recognize both sides, but you choose at some point in your life, you choose which one you want to be affiliated with. So that's a little bit different from ours for the most part in formality, but it's not different in practice necessarily. You may live in a town where all of your relatives are present, and you recognize both sides, and you hang out with them all equally, and it's a fully bilateral kinship system to you. You may, on the other hand, avoid half of your family. I mean, many times people don't get along with one half or the other, or they live far apart, and so this ambilineal pattern, kind of emerges. Right? It doesn't have to be an official prescription in order to exist. It can be a sort of a de facto circumstance. And that certainly works out in the United States, but it can work out within any bilateral system if there's more of an ambilineal preference. Double descent. This is probably the more complicated out of these, and it refers to a circumstance in which you have basically a bilateral system. You recognize both sides, but you trace through both sides. So you recognize you're related to people through both sides, both your male and female relatives. On the other hand, you recognize them for different purposes. And I'm just going to give you an example, which we shouldn't get caught up on, but it could, for example, be that you determine who you're not allowed to marry through your mother's side, and you determine who you inherit property from through your male relatives. Right? That would be an example of double descent, where you recognize both sides, but for different social purposes. Right? That's the end of that one. We'll move on. Residence patterns will be the next segment. Break here.